Welcome to Gubr Gaming, my name's Michael, and today I want to cover an important topic by addressing something that many WoW players are probably wondering. After 20 years, what will the next 20 years look like? And you might want to stick around because this one is going to open your mind to some interesting possibilities that I think Blizzard may end up exploring, so let's dive in. So, number one, WoW will get an overhaul. In my opinion, after 20 years of the game being out, this marks the perfect opportunity for Blizzard to update the in-game systems and engine that WoW runs on. It's been a faithful servant over the years and has even been iterated on by the team to great success, but if they want greater scope for flexibility and to utilise modern efficiencies, then I do believe an overhaul is necessary. In fact, I do believe that the latest 3 expansions as part of the World Soul saga signals the wrapping up of the current era and the end of Azeroth's current story arc. It's a great way to end current era WoW, and I think Blizzard signalling that they were going to do 3 expansions as a chapter was a nod to that ending. So what would an overhaul look like? Well, that brings me on to my next point, asset modularization. So let's be honest, in the age of Unreal Engine, artificial intelligence and the ever greater desire for players to have input on the world around them, asset modularity is an essential component in the vision for the next 20 years and beyond. Asset modularity breaks down in-game assets into reusable components that can be implemented into the world at the player or creator's behest. We've already seen Blizzard working towards that goal with player housing, where you can browse a catalogue of Warcraft related assets to use, manipulate and implement into your own little living space. This is just a snapshot of what can be accomplished and just a small part of where I think the future is heading with this technology. And let's not forget recent breakthroughs like artificial intelligence that allow us to leverage our ideas into easy to implement fixtures, whether that be to create art, write an article, or research things at a much quicker pace than would have been possible in the past. Artificial intelligence is democratising the creative space, meaning it's now not often necessary to have any technical expertise to accomplish your goals. For gaming, this means a whole world of possibilities starts to open up. We've already seen the hype for novel worlds, private servers, Turtle WoW, and alternative Warcraft related visions of what could have been, or what could be possible. I think Blizzard defending their intellectual property isn't so much related to their previous mindset of overzealotry, as much as it is to create a moat around what's coming, which will be the future of in-game world creation. Blizzard's already sitting on a goldmine and treasure trove of Warcraft related assets, not just from World of Warcraft, but even from the Warcraft RTS series itself. In fact, modular games aren't really a new thing, as we've seen how popular things like Roblox and Minecraft are, or were. However, they don't quite hit the mark for most people, especially in terms of how they're made and the art style they use, and this is where Blizzard can take advantage of that with World of Warcraft. So where's this all leading? Well, number 3, sandbox worlds. So just like crypto and blockchain companies are trying to become the new base layer of the internet, games companies with desirable and or newly created assets are fighting a somewhat silent battle at the moment to become the base layer for game creation and persistent worlds. It's not hard to see that Blizzard has changed their approach to WoW over the years by transforming it from a traditional MMO with narrow paths and goals like raiding or PvP towards a much broader spectrum where any playstyle is appreciated and somewhat catered for, with somewhat being the key word here. If Blizzard wants to capture a slice of that pie, they need to move with the times, which seems to be going towards gamers looking for a permanent home, where the things they do matter and persist indefinitely throughout the life cycle of the game, with the hope that it would last forever. It wouldn't be amiss to say that Blizzard didn't quite catch up to this line of thinking until recently, especially with Minecraft being around since 2009 now, but I do think the advent of AI has forced the hand, because the scope of competition will become much bigger, and much quicker due to many barriers for creation being removed. Game creation is no longer the domain of tech nerds, code junkies and million-dollar funding. AI allows anyone with an internet connection and a half-decent computer to whip up vibe-coded games and assets in much less time with much less input. But let's be honest, we've seen sandbox games in the past, why would it be any different now? Well, this is where we lever up the player involvement. AI might have lowered barrier for entry for games companies, but it also lowers the barrier for entry to player-shaped worlds, which takes me to my next point, which is number 4, player-created worlds, servers and alternative visions. So yes, they already exist in the form of private servers, but what if Blizzard didn't need to lose a chunk of their subscribers to these rival upstarts ripping off their intellectual property? What if Blizzard themselves just provided the tools in-game for people to shape their own servers, define their own rules, and create their own game modes? Sounds like a pipe dream, right? Well, if Blizzard doesn't do it, then someone else will. And this could be a much greater threat in the long run to profitability than private servers ever could be. And I just want to remind you that handing over creative tools to the player isn't even outside the remit of what Blizzard previously offered. I mean, just look at Warcraft 3 and the spin-off mode Dota that originated from a player-shaped project, which ultimately ended up catalysing an entire genre. the MOBA genre, with popular games like Dota 2 and League of Legends becoming billion-dollar revenue games just off the back of that. These creative players cleverly used tools provided in the Warcraft 3 world editor and the game's official custom map creation tool to create custom scenarios which allowed them to manipulate the game's assets, units, and rules without using external programming tools. Simply put, the technology has existed for some time to make this feasible, but the scope, scale and speed in which this can be accomplished now is scary, but in a good way. For World of Warcraft, this means players could define their own servers, make their own rules, scale the difficulty to how they want it, create custom PvP maps, or even make their entire server itself a ruthless PvP world. The ideas are truly endless, and yes, I know some people may recoil at the idea of moving away from a Blizzard-directed story, but think of it like this. The players who already left to play private servers or want alternative visions aren't playing retail WoW, so I think the argument is naive. So let's look at point 5, how would this look in-game? In my opinion, it would be as simple as having a server creation tool and a browser list with categorizations, similar at the moment to how the guild finder works in-game, but on an expanded level, with lots of niche filters to find exactly what you want. Obviously Blizzard could offer different clients such as Vanilla, TBC, Wrath of the Lich King, etc. as like a base layer to work from, but they could also allow for total sandbox development where people could make arena specific servers or war-like servers with destructible environments using modular assets that Blizzard provide. In fact, much of the technology already exists now thanks to the player housing feature, which will be coming in midnight or likely the pre-patch beforehand, with some estimates being as early as winter 2025. Obviously, some iteration would need to be done for things like quest creation, NPC behaviour, etc. But this isn't beyond the scope, considering the technology we have access to now that can abstract complex technicalities away from the end user. As an added point, many servers can be successful with relatively few players, and with modes being selective, they don't need to have many players at all to be self-sustaining. I mean, they could even just be a great tool for playing out role-playing scenarios for people who are interested in storytelling. The possibilities really are endless here. So, going to my last point, number 6. It's worth talking about how Blizzard benefits from this, because at the end of the day, they are at the whims of shareholders and profit generation, and money is what matters. So think of it like this. WoW becomes something akin to Unreal Engine, with a higher subscription model to benefit from the creation tool and to access those player-created servers. It becomes a self-sustaining flywheel that will never die because players can always just create something new without the need for paid developers. The World of Warcraft game and its assets become fully democratized and liberated to the player base, where we can be free to tell our own stories and play in exactly the way we want to. This completely eliminates the need for private servers at all, whilst keeping players within the Blizzard economy model. And better yet, it frees up time for developers to do other things while solving the needs and wants of everyone. It's the only model, in my opinion, that makes sense in an AI-focused world, where eventually other sandbox models will exist that allow players to create with ease worlds that they can interact in, play in, and ultimately fulfill their dreams of what they want to achieve in a virtual world. So I hope this vision of the next 20 years of World of Warcraft has given you some excitement that I think many people have been waiting for. If you think this would be a good idea, or even a bad idea, then why not let us know below and have a chat about it. Meanwhile, as this is a new channel, I'd appreciate if you could hit the like button, subscribe, and share so we can reach other people with more weekly WoW content. Thanks for listening guys, bye for now.